Welcome everybody to the regular meeting of the Roxbury Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Commission. It's already February 28th, 2023. We'll start with Rob.
Rob Horrigan.
John Smoliga.
Melanie Jellin.
That's it. Okay. So I will seat Melanie. Who are we missing? Sue and Sierra, right? Yes. So I'll seat Melanie for Sue right now, because I think Sierra may be joining.
Okay.
Okay. Approval, communications with the public. Anybody have anything general? No. Show cause hearing minutes. Approval of the minutes. Let's start with the regular meeting from January 23rd, 2023. Anybody have any comments on the regular meeting minutes?
Russ, I'll abstain. I wasn't at that meeting.
Okay. Rob, Melanie, any comments on the minutes?
No, I'll make a motion to approve them.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
The minutes from the show cause hearing, January 31st, 2023. Any comments on those minutes?
Again, Russ, I didn't make that meeting, so I'll abstain.
Okay, thank you, John. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from the show cause hearing?
I'll move to approve the minutes of the show cause hearing, January 31st.
Second,
I second it.
all in favor? Aye.
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 On the old business, 11-22, number 1, Janet
Oh,
Dennis
excuse me.
McDonald.
Excuse me, just one moment. The show cause hearing on January 24th, I missed who approved that. The minutes.
Rob made the motion, Melanie seconded it, and then we all three of us approved.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry, you cut out a little bit there. All right, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, on to Janet and Dennis McDonald, 6 Baker Road. Septic system for accessory apartment was already approved, I thought. What we're here for is after the fact application for the parking area around the barn, I thought. No?
That's what I believe also.
Yeah, I think she messed that up. Dennis or Brian, you did submit an after the fact application, which we accepted last meeting, right?
I believe it's Brian McDonald. How are you?
Hi, Brian. Good to hear you.
Good. I believe this was just for that wetlands report that you wanted the soil scientist James McManus to write up for you.
Right. So, Julie, we'll have to look into that after, but there's an after the fact application for the parking area around what we approved last meeting was the change of use to an apartment, from a storage building to an apartment. So now we noticed there was a parking area around it. Dennis or Brian thought that was required by zoning, so they didn't know they had to get wetland approval. So they submitted an after fact application for that parking area. At the last meeting, we asked that they hire a wetland consultant to talk to us about the impact, not only about that parking area, about all the development that's gone on that property over the years, and proposed, because they do have approval for a storage garage, but that hasn't been built yet. So with that, Jim, are you here?
I am. Good evening, Mr. Chair. Jim
Good to see you,
McManus,
Jim.
soil scientist with JM Wetland Consulting Services. I hope that you folks all have a letter. I put together a report on February 22nd, it was dated. And I essentially went through I discussed in this letter, not only the two-bedroom apartment that was already constructed when I first went onto the site, but then the gravel drive around, and then I talked about the proposed barn, pole barn that's coming off of the existing residence. And Mr. Chair, I think you also wanted to know about, because the site has a hit for an NDDB, and they actually
Yes.
got back to me. I can't believe it's the first time they got back to me this quickly. So I actually have something to say about that tonight too.
Good, that's good. I know they take a while,
They do, but this
or
was
they have
quite-
been.
this was
Yeah.
fast, really fast. So I don't know how much you want me to go through. I don't know if anybody's.
Yeah, for the record, you should go through the whole thing, sticking to our concern about what impact is there,
Sure.
if any. And then what is the endangered species that's in that circle that the site's kind of centered on?
Sure.
Hey, Russ, just one point here. It looks like Sierra and Kathy are on now.
Okay, so I'll,
Sorry I was late, guys. The snow
No,
day.
no
Threw me off.
problem. So Sierra's here and so she's on as a regular member, as a voting member. And now I'm gonna see Sue for Melanie, right? It's Sue, you here?
Wasn't here yet. Kathy Raz is.
Oh, okay, Kathy Ross. All right, never mind. Sierra, you're seated. So we now have 5 voting members. So I'm sorry, Jim, go ahead.
All right, thank you. I visited the site 3 separate occasions. My first visit was in October of 2020. And that was really to just kind of review the wetlands in the northern part of the site near the two-bedroom apartment building that looks like a garage. It has the stone around it. And then I revisited the site again for another occasion to review some wetlands in the southern part over by Route Baker Road. That was done in May of 21. And also an area in the middle of the lawn in the southern part that's maintained as lawn. Henry Moeller, back whenever he did that, had a wetland there, and I looked at that, and the soils did come out to be poorly drained. And then I went back recently here in February of this year, 17th, to kind of gather more information to write the report that hopefully you folks have. The wetland that's near the proposed pole barn and the recently constructed two-bedroom apartment is a mixture of certain things. The wetland closest to the development is maintained as long as it's disturbed. I dug some holes in there, and particularly as you get closer to any development, including the existing development, it becomes more of it meets the regulation kind of thing. It has, not quite 20 inches of fill over it. So it still meets an aquat, which means it meets a poorly drained soil here in the state of Connecticut, means it's regulated. So it's not, the function is low. It's been disturbed for decades, at least until the homes were built. And it probably has historic disturbances due to farming way back when. The wetlands that are near the road and in the front yard, again, are really disturbed. The one near Baker Road is essentially a ditch that gathers stormwater runoff. And then the one in the lawn has been just to maintain disturbed wetland. No great shakes there. The function and value assessment, I kind of stuck my assessment near the development. Obviously, as we move further away into the shrub and in the forested area where the water course is, I know there'd be a few more principal functions that would pop up, but the main functions that are near the proposed development and anything that's there today is pretty much the sediment retention and the nutrient removal. That's pretty much the functionality of these wetlands today, with other items such as groundwater recharge, discharge, and some wildlife habitat is associated with it, of course. There are no direct impacts. We looked at indirect impacts that deal with construction, which is erosion and sediment control. All the soils are sort of silty. Like I said before, that the grades are flat and the area that's adjacent to any proposal is disturbed. So with diligent monitoring of the erosion controls, we're not anticipating any impacts in that regard. Another thing we look at indirect impacts is removal of native vegetation and habitat loss. There are no trees that are going to be removed. So we're not anticipating any loss of habitat due to that. Impacts to wetland hydrology and stream flow is another one that we look at. Again, talking with the engineer and we're not anticipating any hydrology impacts, particularly the perennial and the intermittent watercourses by the street. It's funny. I was there actually on the 17th of February of this year. It was raining, so I actually saw the stone encased area around the new 2-bedroom apartment, and it was working as designed. I mean, it was gathering the stormwater coming on, or actually the runoff coming off of the roof. It would hit the stone and infiltrate into the ground. I have actually a picture that actually indicates that. If you look at my picture number 9, you can't really see the water dropping, of course, but you see the puddling on the stone, and it's just sitting there waiting to infiltrate. And then the final thing is, again, with potential water quality impacts. Again, we have no gutters or spouts, downspouts on the proposed structure and the 2-bedroom apartment. And so what's running off is from the roofs, which are typically not significant or adverse impacts to water quality. And again, it's the proposal is far enough away that we're not going to impact that water course. And again, the wetlands that are nearest any development are just highly disturbed. And so in the NDDB submission, they came up with 4 different bats, but we're not cutting any trees down, so that's not an issue. And then they came up with the eastern box turtle is the 5th species that came up in that little bubble. But however, like I said a minute ago, I mean, the area that the proposal has already built or is proposed to be built is it's either disturbed or within maintained lawn. So it's a small likelihood that we'll encounter any of these species, certainly the bats, because we're not moving any trees down. So
Okay, Jim, thank you. Any questions for Jim on this application?
Russ, I had a question on the conclusion, his conclusion where he talks about, Jim, where you say it's JMM's professional opinion that as proposed and with diligent monitoring of erosion and sediment controls, et cetera, could you kind of describe the diligent monitoring that you're referring to here?
I might want to change that in the future. People ask me that all the time. Diligent monitoring means we're on top of things. We don't let the silt fence, if we had a storm and the silt fence sediment gets piled up against it, we don't let it sit there for a month and a half and let it fall over and then fall into the wetlands. We're on top of that. We remove that sediment right away. If the silt fence rips or gets run over by a pickup truck, we repair it immediately. We're not playing games. We don't say, well, I'll get to it next week, and then it rains and then we have a problem. So diligent monitoring. We're close to wetlands. We have our erosion controls, and then we stay on top of things when we are in construction phase. So that's what I mean with diligent monitoring. As proposed, we're not anticipating any impacts to the long-term impacts. Our short-term impacts, we're not thinking we're not going to have any impacts of that with our diligent monitoring. We have to stay on top of our erosion and sediment controls. So that's kind of what that whole sentence means.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
I have just a couple questions. Jim, on section 5.0, the proposed activity and the potential water quality impacts. And you referenced the stone that was put around the building, the apartment building.
Right.
But you don't reference that, I don't believe, as a driveway.
Well, I didn't really know it was a driveway. I just commented well, the applicant described it actually Dennis Baker I was talking to, described it as, well, you guys may know better. I wasn't here for all of the ins and outs, but I guess
Right.
the zoning department or the planning department had a
Zoning,
problem. Pardon?
zoning. Yep.
Had a problem with it. And so he put a bunch of stone around it, which was fine. But I guess you folks thought, boy, he put a lot of stone around it. It almost looks like a driveway. Having said that, it's still functioning as designed. It is doing what it was supposed to do, as the zoning department wanted him to do, which is to gather any runoff, whether it be surface water or from the roof, and then infiltrate and not run off in an erodible fashion into the nearby wetlands or carry pollutants into the nearby wetlands. So it's doing what it's designed to do, whether a car parks on it or not. It's doing what it was designed to do. And like I said in my report, it just happened to be there when it was raining. So I watched it, and that's why I took a picture of it. And it was doing what it was supposed to do.
Okay, Rob, any other questions?
Yeah, because I'm just concerned because it's not referenced as a driveway, but on the plan, it's referenced as an existing driveway. And I think my concern over this the whole time is that we're putting a lot of like impervious, driveways, whether they're crushed stone or not, are relatively impervious. So you're going to get runoff into the wetlands, I would believe, from a driveway. And if there's, 2 apartments with lots of cars and things, is that going to be an issue? That was my concern from day one on this proposed existing driveway. And it's really not addressed in this report because it doesn't reference it as a driveway. And I think, a stone French drain or erosion control versus a driveway with cars parked on it is different, right up against a wetland. So I just wanted Jim to address that.
Well, what I saw in the field, it was working fine. Again, I don't know how close cars are going to park to this driveway. I mean, to the 2-bedroom structure. I mean, there is a drip line, and the picture I took was the water dripping off of the roof line and coming into the stone. So I can't answer that. What I saw in the field, everything was fine. It wasn't compacted. It looked fine to me. It was working as designed. And the only thing I could say is you kind of somehow mark out where you shouldn't park and call that the area of the drip line, and where the runoff would go. And the rest, I don't know what was proposed. I mean, what was the thought, I should say, back in the day when you were talking to zoning and then talking with the applicant about.
Well,
the project?
Jim, what it is that there's been little add-ons to this development as time goes on. And unfortunately, what's done is done, but the add-ons were never presented as surveys, and it's just piecemealed, and some things got done, some other things didn't. So at the last meeting, when we were going to approve the septic and change the use because Wetlands did not approve it as an apartment building, that was approved. But we did notice that the area around it, which is all gravel, which is the driveway, whether we approved it as a driveway or not, that's what it is. That's what it, to me, that's what it's been. Whether that whole development would have an impact to the wetlands. And your answer to that, based on your report, was no.
Right.
If there wouldn't be a long-term impact, and there won't be a short-term impact, the bats won't be impacted, the eastern box turtle. Well, if the eastern box turtle was going to be impacted, it would have been impacted by now because all those houses were built there,
right,
before we had this kind of resource available to us to know what kind of endangered species are around.
Right.
So I think Rob's concern is we didn't, it didn't come to us as a driveway, but It's been a driveway since they built that storage area, to me. And I think we want to clean this up and just approve it as a driveway, which is what we discussed last meeting, or we want to deny it. My concern about denial is, what's the answer? You're gonna rip all that up? I don't know. You know, I
Right.
just,
Yeah, I get Rob's point. I mean, it is an asphalt. It is stone. I can't see into the future right now. I don't have a concern. It's not let's just talk about the 2-bedroom apartment that was changing use, and now we have the driveway stone area around it, call it a driveway, call it whatever. I mean, there is some vegetated area prior to hitting the wetland resource, which is disturbed. That is the disturbed part of the wetland resource. So we do have some fluff before it gets into the better stuff, which is beyond the maintained area, where we hit the scrubs area and then we hit the water course. And the area I would be concerned about for me would be the north side of that. So I don't know what I don't know how much parking is going to be on the north side. When I'm there, all cars are kind of parked in the existing kind of dirt, kind of gravel driveway, not on the new stone area.
Is that north side? Is that where the three garage doors are?
Oh boy,
yes.
now you're texting me. I don't have all that detail in front of me. Shoot. Hang on. Let me look. I can get some pictures up here. I might have to. Hang on. Yes, this would be the 3-bay.
So it looks like, you know, cars are going to be pulled in there, the apartment cars, I would suspect. You know, and per apartment, do you figure 2 cars?
Yep.
2.5 cars per apartment, 2, 1? What do you typically?
Well, I would figure probably I would have to guess 2. But if you look at my picture number 3, for instance, that's a good one.
I don't have it up.
Okay, well, I can't show you guys, obviously, but picture number 3 just shows there's a buffer of herbaceous vegetation, goldenrods, various types of grasses, such that are it goes stone, this little goldenrod and various other herbaceous or perennials, and then it goes into the area would be considered wet. So there is some buffer. And it is a gravel driveway. It's not a paved driveway. So we don't have, every time it rains, it doesn't have a sheet flow effect, you know, impervious. The stone is pervious at this point. It's not impervious. Whether it
And
be impervious from 10 years from now, well,
And Jim, that photo is from 2020?
that is. When I was out there, my first visit. That was the October 17th, 2020 photo. That just happens to show the 3 bays and kind of gives you a sense of what's growing around the wetland and adjacent to it. That wasn't stoned, if you will.
Is there anything that you could suggest to the applicant to protect or to minimize, you know, the encroachment in the future?
Well, I would add another 5 or 7 feet of buffer, whether it be maintain lawn or just remove a section of stone in that, particularly in that northern part where the 3 bays are, and just let it grow natural, or have some sort of buffer filter, have a filter, additional filter coming off of the stone. If you can do that. I don't know about turning radius and all that thing. I would just add a little bit more, take a little bit more stone out and add another buffer. So that just increases our runoff. If there is a runoff event, it gives you that much more opportunity to capture that runoff and treat it before it hits the actual wetland itself. That's what I would recommend to Dennis and Brian.
And as a buffer, you're talking about like a grass area?
It could be a grass, or we could grow what's showing in my picture, just, you know, herbaceous plants. Grass would work. You can maintain it. To keep it, it would keep an edge. So people just won't just kind of like say, let's turn this into something else.
Any other questions? Julie, I think this application came in last month, right?
I don't think an after the fact application came in.
Really?
I-
Brian, could you answer that? I don't know why we're here then.
I believe what was noted was the motion was to get satisfied by getting the wetlands report into you guys. That's what we were here to talk about.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. That was my understanding, Russ, that we
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
get my
you're right.
report together.
Now
and
it's all coming back to
Yeah,
me.
you sent
Yeah,
me and
I
think you
could have
sent me an
sworn
email.
we asked for an after the fact application for the driveway.
Uh, that's Brian's, Brian would know that answer.
I believe you did ask for it if you go back to the minutes, but in the motion, it just asked for the soil scientist report to sasatisfy what you guys were asking for.
Right. And Russ, you sent me,
Right. So what we gotta do then, that's for the septic.
Excuse me,
Because
Russ.
that's what the motion to approve was contingent upon, his report.
No, it was also contingent upon it
I'm
submitting an
actually,
after the fact application within 60 days with an opinion from a wetland scientist.
this,
well, I
if
gave
you
my
can, if you
opinion.
can see the screen right now, that is the motion. It did require.
Yeah,
an
so the
after-fact
conditional
application too.
approval is the applicant was supposed to submit an after the fact application within 60 days with an opinion from a wetland scientist. So what you need to do is submit an after the fact application for the driveway. And now you already have the wetland scientist report. Because that wasn't submitted, we have nothing to vote on. So we'll have to wait till next meeting. You should submit an after the fact application. The good thing is your consultant made an excellent recommendation. So the after the fact application should include the creation of a buffer area between the garage, between the driveway. Again, this after the fact application is for the driveway. Okay, just to make it clear, for the driveway. And what we're saying is based on the report we heard tonight, when you submit it, is you should include in there a design for a buffer area between the driveway and the wetlands on all sides.
Right.
Because we're not gonna design that for you or agree in principle how that's gonna be done. You should hire your expert to tell you the best way to do it. And those wetlands are very pristine. I know over the years they've gotten built up all around because that's before we understood as a town and as a state how important wetlands are.
Well, Russ, the wetlands near the development are not pristine. They've been.
No, but further in and
Further
the
in,
whole system,
Yep.
and the whole system up and down is
That's right.
important.
It is, and there's
It's
a lot of
important.
development around that system. So,
Right. So what we have is what we have.
yeah,
So we're asking for an after the fact application for the driveway.
can
If
I
that
ask
wasn't
Julie a quick
submitted, We
question?
don't have anything to vote on.
I can ask Julie a quick question because I have something in my file here that I recently got, and it's an application that was filled out by Brian or I think, and unfortunately, it's not signed, but it has attached to it. It has my report. So I don't know if this is.
Well, we'll look into it.
Yeah.
If it was submitted and it got lost, it doesn't matter. We're gonna go another month anyway. Doesn't matter at all. But all we're saying is if it's determined that it wasn't submitted with the $350 after the fact fee, then we have nothing to vote on tonight. And since our office is saying we don't have it here, then we have nothing to vote on tonight. So let's move on. We got it, right?
Understood.
Yeah, okay. So what's next?
Next, it's actually 7:30. I don't know if Sue's on yet. Do you want to just go to Bezos on Town Line
No,
Road?
yeah, let's go to Betos because I would rather step down and sign off because I've
Okay.
stepped down. Yeah, then, then I got to figure, somebody got to text me and all that stuff. So we'll go to
Okay.
Bezos. Rob, did you go look at it? Selective tree cutting?
Yes, I
Town Line
did.
Road?
Yes, I did.
You have any issues?
I guess it's just kind of a random, a question about kind of the randomness of it. What's the purpose of the tree cutting? Is
Well, up on the
Cotter,
plateau in the upland and outside the upland area, that's where he's gonna build this house. My concern was the proposal to cut down some selective trees along the stream. But when I was there, it wasn't, he didn't flag the trees. He was pointing them out to me. And afterwards, I thought, I'm not comfortable. This is how trouble begins. And, then they clear cut the whole stream bank. And then we get in an argument over what trees he was pointing at. So I asked him to flag the trees. And then I wanted somebody else on the commission. I was going to bring Sierra on Saturday. Unfortunately, she had a sick kid and couldn't do it. But I looked at it and I wanted to know, if you looked at it, Rob, right? He flagged it so you could see what
Yes.
trees he was.
yes, I saw that,
He
but
explained to me he just wanted to have a little view into the field.
that's
Connor, are you here?
the view. So the house location would be over where those very large oak trees are,
Right in the
okay.
flat area,
where that big
over
pile,
100 feet from the stream.
where all those boulders are that were dropped
Right.
by the glaciers.
Right.
And there was one huge oak tree that was flagged there to be cut. That's outside the regulated area. But it just seemed kind of like a random thing to just cut that. Yeah, there might have been, a dozen trees there on that bank.
Yes, and he explained to me he wanted to do those dozen trees to give a little view into the field.
Okay, but the field's above it. It's not, the field's not to the
No,
north.
the field, if you're looking directly at the stream, there's a field on the other side of it.
Okay, all right,
So
okay.
you're not looking up, you're looking cross gradient.
I just think that, I would be concerned about the stump, whatever they're gonna do with the stumps.
He stated to me they were gonna leave the stumps.
So that you're gonna flush cut it and just leave the stumps. And
Yes.
there weren't many large trees that they were cutting. A lot of them were small, just, like 4 to 6 inch.
Yes, they're gonna clear where the house is going, obviously.
Yeah, but I'm talking about in that regulated area on the stream bank.
That's the way I read it, and that's why I wanted somebody else to go look at it and for him to flag it.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really have an issue with it. I'm sure at some point there weren't any trees there. In recent history when it was all farmed.
Right.
I
I didn't
just,
have a problem with it.
okay.
If you did, then,
No, I don't have a problem with it.
I don't have a problem with somebody cutting 12 small trees near a stream. It's if he started taking down the big trees that are shading the stream. And I understood how you could get a little view into that field by cutting the lower brush and leaving the bigger stuff. So you want to make a motion, Rob?
Yes, I'll make a motion to approve the selective cutting of the trees along the stream bank, as long as they're not, the stumps are left in place. No heavy equipment is used within 100 feet of the stream. It's all done by hand.
Okay. Anybody want to second that?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, what's next? Gotta,
Okay, next you got notice of violation 127 Southbury Road.
okay.
And I believe John is here.
And Deanna's here too. Hi, Deanna.
Hi,
This is
yes.
127 South Berry Road. John was driving around. He noticed a drainage pipe. So John, you want to explain what you saw?
Yes, definitely, Russ. John Cody, WEO. Right down the road from me on the corner of Crowfoot and Southbury Road. The homeowner put a drainage pipe that went across her front yard, and they discharge it onto Crowfoot into a pile of riprap. So obviously with the water discharging onto the road or next to the road like that, we had to address the issue. So I reached out to issue the NOV, reached out to the homeowner. She immediately responded and she came back with a plan that she's going to present to you guys.
Okay. So were there wetlands there, John?
No, it's just because of the water being discharged onto the side of the road.
So that could impact wetlands,
Well, they're transferring water from their property onto someone else's property.
but is that a wetland issue?
No, it's not.
Yeah.
Well, but wouldn't it be, Russ? I mean, don't we have jurisdiction over that? I mean, we don't want increased runoff from one property to another.
That's what I was looking at it as.
Well, we have a map up, John. So you want to explain what that line going off the corner of the house, is that the drainage pipe?
Yes, if you look straight across the front of the house, that pipe went straight to the corner of Crowfoot Lane and it was discharging right on the side there. The proposal is to take that and run it to the back of their property. It's downgrading, goes away from the road. I don't see any issue with it. I know the area rather well.
Okay, so right now it goes from the house, the highlighted area, just to the corner of the road, and then it discharges there.
Correct.
And that's always been that way?
No, it's new. Apparently, because of the high water table, the water's coming out of the top of the well cap, and it was just flooding their front yard. So they had to remove the water.
So they have artesian water,
Correct.
sounds like.
Mm.
Yeah, if it's coming out of their well, they have, yep.
Just one point here is, I see that septic system.
Yeah,
I
how
don't
do you
believe-
do that?
Well, I don't believe you're able to put a drainage pipe within
No,
20
you gotta
feet.
be 50 feet away, don't you, John? 25, 50? I
Well,
know there's a
that's-
setback. It's a health
that's not-
department.
Yeah, that's Newtown Health. That's not my call.
Yeah, but we don't want to approve something that they didn't approve because we're wasting our time then.
I
Because
kind of
that's not
advised them
gonna
about
get their
that.
approval.
The contractor that we're working with said that it needed to be 20 feet. So that's why we drew the septic in there just for our own awareness, but it actually all moves off to the left. So it's well within where we're proposing it. It's well away from the septic.
Okay. All right, I could go with that.
If we were to do it on the other side of the house, on the left side of the house where the map is, it would go right into the leaching fields. So there's really, that's why we chose to, we've already gone across the front yard, so we were just going to turn the corner and go down the back, which is the least impact of any property. We're well within 300 plus feet to the neighboring property and away from the road. So that was the reason.
All right. Any questions? I think we should approve this as a non-regulated activity and drop the notice of violations. It's not a regulated activity, really. We could take jurisdiction, but I think it's easier to say this is non-regulated. John could have approved this through an inquiry form. So I'm going to make a motion to approve this as a non-regulated activity contingent upon health department approval and that the notice of violation be approved as ended and found to be no violation. That's my motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
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 Thank you, Deanna.
Okay, thank you.
Next,
Let's see.
on the new
you have-
business,
Yep, your second.
couple new houses.
Yep, new house is 92 Hemlock we're going to next. Nicholas Pakula and Mackenzie Muhonen. Let's get to the map.
All right, is there somebody here to represent this applicant? You have to unmute. We don't hear you, unfortunately. Hey, Julie, could you bring that in a little?
Sure. Oh, wrong way.
Okay, I'm unmuted now.
There you are.
Okay. Good evening.
Good evening.
So I'm Mayo Veldhuizen. I'm the builder. I'm on the application as the applicant. You see a piece of paper there for the owner allowing me to act as the agent in the application. We have no activity within the 100-foot regulated area, as you can see on the print. We're all staying away, well from the wetlands and the regulated area.
Okay. Is there a driveway drainage plan?
There's a driveway culvert proposed, 15-inch pipe along Hemlock Road.
Okay, could you bring it up a little, Julie? So we can see where the drive goes into the road? Is that just to continue drainage on the road? Yes.
Correct. There's no additional, it's just the drainage that is already there on the road to continue that, correct.
Okay, where will the roof drainage go?
The roof drainage will go into a small leaching area that Brian has drawn in. That is in the backyard. You'll see the connector. You see he has a 4-inch.
Yeah, could you go back up now, Julie? Sorry.
Yeah, no.
Problem.
Yeah, everybody see the pipe going to a proposed roof infiltrator?
Yep, that's what it is.
That'll handle a 25-year storm?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So we'll go look at it, just because we want to take a look at, we like to get a sense of things before we approve houses.
Okay.
We'll go look at it, and next meeting. Well, right now, does anybody have any questions for the applicant or concerns that the applicant could address before the next meeting?
I just have a question about the driveway drainage. I'm sorry, Julie, could you just
Yes.
scroll down a little bit?
There we go.
So it's a relatively flat driveway.
The property is pretty flat all the way through. The driveway is pretty much level. I think there's probably an incline of a couple of feet. It's shown as a 3% incline.
So that's relatively flat.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is this flagged so we can find first, find it on the road and then just stick with the house?
There's a mark on the tree that says 92.
Okay. Is the
then
house staked?
The house is not staked, but the corners of the property are.
It'd be good to know. Well, okay, we'll go look at it. It's right in the middle of the property. And if it's flat
Yes.
and the wetlands are in back, okay.
Yep.
We probably will want the wetland buffer zone marked with either post, just to warn,
Mm-hmm.
we like to have markers. It
Okay.
doesn't have to be obscene, maybe every 50 feet, just a post.
Okay.
Can we also get the septic stake too?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just the corners of the house and the septic. That way we'll be able to figure our way around.
Okay. Not a problem.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
What's next, Julie?
Next, we're going to 98 Chaladies. And hold on, let me. David and Nancy Lane, and let's get to their map. New.
Russ, I will step down from this application.
Okay,
You unmuted?
so
I'm
right now, just so there's no confusion, seated are myself, Sue, John, Sierra, and I will seat Melanie for Rob on this application. Okay, Melanie?
Okay, no problem.
So Mr. and who is the applicants, Julie?
David and Nancy.
David and Nancy, welcome to Roxbury.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So Julie, could you zoom in a little? Chalaby's, is this where the road has to be repaired a little, or you're gonna
Yes.
build a driveway way down?
Correct.
Yeah, I've seen this many times. Are there any wetlands on the property?
Not anywhere near the where the house is going. If you go to the very bottom of the property, there may be intermittently throughout the year some water down there, but it's well away from the structure.
Do
see
you have a
outs-
drainage plan for the driveway?
Yes, you see the red line there. That's a drainage line that's going in.
Okay.
There are two catch basins at the top,
Yeah.
which is to the right, and then another one in along the way, and then eventually it drains out to the catch basin, the existing one at the bottom of the road.
Okay, could you go up a little, Julie? Yep, they have a groundwater infiltrator also for the roof drains.
Correct.
Footing drains should go to daylight anyway. Yeah, we'll go take a look at this. Does anybody have a question for the applicants? So if they need to address it, they could address it within the next month.
Is it staked?
The house is not, but the septic is. And the runoff drain is too.
Would it be a problem just staking the house?
Um,
Would that
Yeah,
be a,
yeah. It's not cleared.
well, Brian's on vacation, but other than that, we can see
It's
what we can
just-
do.
sticking a stake in the ground? That's all
Yeah.
we're asking. You don't have to
Yeah.
clear it.
Right.
And it doesn't need to be exact. We just need to have an idea of where the house is going.
Okay.
All right?
Yeah.
Okay, what's next?
That's it for applications. Do you want to go to the John's report now?
Wait,
Yes.
Russ, wait 1 minute. This Sue. Do we not want to have a stake for the driveway on that? A couple stakes for the driveway?
Yeah, Mr. Lane, will we be able to know where this driveway is? I mean, is there a way to know, yep, this is where the entrance is gonna be?
We can do that.
Okay. Yeah, just so when we go there that we could find it.
Okay.
When are they going there?
Yeah, so well, when would you want to go there? Do you want me to, I need to coordinate that with someone that can do that.
Just tell Karen at the land use office or email her, or just let her know, yep, it's state. And then
Okay.
she'll let us know and we go out when we're in the area
All right.
before the next meeting.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah,
Welcome
thank
to
you.
town. Thank you. All right, what's your report, John?
Julie,
Hey,
can you
John.
pull up my paper, please?
Yep.
Oh, I'm reseating Rob for Melanie now at this time.
Okay, you can see that it was rather slow, typical for this time of year. Not much really going on, but it is obviously as of tonight, it's starting to pick up with the new homes coming in. I've had 3 administrative permits there that you can see. The NOV we just resolved. Really not much there. The only other thing of importance I need to say is that we had a marshal serve Miss Grebla of 55 Garnet Road for the citation. She received that. We have not heard anything back from her yet, but we anticipate that shortly. If we don't, I'll be reaching out to Gail and see what our next step is going to be.
Yeah, basically, she's been served the cease and desist fine. That was served by a marshal.
Correct.
And the period to appeal the fine is passed. And
As
then
of
she
today,
was, right. As of today, John?
I believe so.
Yeah, I thought it was yesterday, but fine. And also she's been served papers for court to address the blockage of the intermittent stream. And as far as I know, that date has been set as March 13th.
That's correct. And I was there on Friday to verify the sandbags are still there. And yes, they are.
Yep. So that's that on that. So I'm going to step down. Sue, you're taking over as chair. Right now seated is Rob, Sierra, John, and I think you would want to see Kathy on this because she's been involved, and you could seat her for me. Okay. Have a good night, everybody, and good luck.
Oh,
Sue, then you'll have to end the meeting. Okay.
okay. I'll try.
Thank you.
All right. So we have Rod, Sierra, John, and then Kathy. I'm going to seat you for Russ. Okay.
Yes.
All right, guys, I'm really sorry. Bear with me. I just walked in the door. And I have a side note. You're going to hear my parrot because this is the only place in the house right now I can get internet connection. So I'm sorry. Okay. Do we have who is here since I literally just signed on? Who is here for the application for Stone Ledge Sam for the deer fencing?
Hey, good evening. Paul Szymanski for the record from Arthur Holland and Associates.
Hi,
Here
Paul.
represent. Hey, how are you?
Good.
Great to hear. Representing Stone Ledge Sam. At the commission's last meeting, we had shown the proposed deer fence. At that time, it was enclosing approximately 47 acres of the 60-acre property at that point in time, with spaces for critter crossings every 100 feet in length. Since that meeting, we then had a site walk on site with Mr. Klein on behalf of the town, Dr. Danzer on behalf of our client. Sue was there and John Cody was there. We walked the revised proposed fence location. If you want, I could share my screen and show that.
Yeah, I think it'd be a good idea. Thanks, Paul. So everyone can see that.
Yep. Okay, so can everyone see my screen?
Yeah, so you can see it, Paul.
Okay, thank you. So the original fence location ran along the westerly side of the property. Fenced within the area was the wetlands pocket north of the driveway. The prior fence location then ran against the northerly property line, then ran easterly along the property line, adjacent to the existing water course, came down just north of the water course and pond that runs parallel with Good Hill Road, and then it ran along the property line until it came back to the driveway. The revised fence location is shown in red. That fence location now excludes the wetlands area north of the driveway that's under construction. It then travels in a northerly direction parallel to the driveway It then travels easterly and southeasterly along the driveway, then northerly, goes to the easterly portion of the property, has been shifted westerly approximately 100 to 125 feet. It stays on the top of the slope along the water course, so it's no longer down along the base of the water course where it was previously proposed. And then as it comes across the current driveway and into an existing meadow, it now travels in a northwesterly direction, westerly and then northerly. So basically it's on there's an existing meadow, which is shown in the green squiggly line. And so we're keeping it down gradient of that meadow. And then it travels to then run parallel along the southerly portion of the driveway so that it excludes the wetland system that is south of the driveway under construction. This allowed us to reduce the enclosed area from approximately 47 acres down to approximately 29.38 acres. So with that, only approximately 50% of the property is now enclosed by the fence. We didn't discuss the actual installation methodology of the fence at the last meeting. The fence is to be installed by hand. Basically, the fence and the fence posts will be brought up the existing driveway with a flatbed truck. The workers will then carry the fence posts and the associated fencing to the area where it's being installed. There is no tree removal to take place as part of this. As I indicated in my letter to the commission, if there's any existing mature trees that are fallen on the ground, they'll simply utilize a chainsaw to cut a 12 to 24 inch log out of the fallen tree so that the fence can just go through the tree itself, so to speak. And to install the fence, they have a device that's run by hand. It's a Rhino Fence Pro Post driver. Basically has a weed eater motor on it that basically pneumatically pounds down on top of the fence post and installs that into the ground. A rounded cap is then placed on top of the fence post, and then the fencing itself is attached to the posts. We did revise our openings, our 12-inch by 12-inch openings at the base of the fence from every 100 feet to every 30 feet. We also submitted, as part of the record, letters from two of our arborists who've been working on the property. They've been inventorying 1,200 trees on the property and assisting with the invasives removal, Mr. Soprano and Mr. Davies, who is here tonight if you have any questions for him. We also submitted for the record our environmental consultant's letter dated February 23rd, 2023 from Dr. Danzer. Dr. Danzer's been on site a couple times, including for the site walk. He reviewed our plans in their entirety. He then went through in detail with respect to the proposed fence. He noted that the installation of the fence will not necessitate the deposition of soil material in or near any wetland or water course or the removal of any wetland soils. As we indicated at the last meeting, we have no activities within the wetlands themselves. He noted there will be no land grading or major modifications to the wetlands. He noted that the physical habitat of the wetlands themselves will not be affected in any way. We're not changing the hydrology of the wetlands or the water courses. We're allowing everything to flow in the manner it is. He notes the passage of wildlife will be maintained through the square cutouts at the bottom of the fence. He notes that the fence will not cause turbidity, siltation, or sedimentation into any of the wetlands and that there's no significant disturbance. He notes that any ground temporarily disturbed would be seeded. That would just be directly adjacent to the fence post itself. He notes that there's no direct disturbance to the intermittent water courses. We're spanning them, so there'll be no disturbance to them as well. Notes that we're not impacting groundwater level in any way whatsoever. He notes that the fence is made of metal, which is an inert substance. He also noted that none of the wetlands or water courses in the western region appear to have any vernal pool characteristics due to the topography of those wetland systems, which are on the steeper end. He noted that the purpose of the previously approved landscaping plans is to reestablish the woodlot conditions within the site. This was noted by Mr. Davies in his letter, which helps to protect the wetlands by preventing erosion. It also will help keep invasive vegetation at bay, also with our monitoring that we're going to be doing on a semi-annual basis as well. He notes that the existing woodland does lack a vibrant native understory due to existing deer browse, and that the fence will allow native seedlings, saplings, and herbaceous plants to reestablish. And then he spoke with respect to the reductions in the fencing itself and the alternatives that were considered. We have 3 different versions of the plan as we've gone along. And he notes impacts on wetland functions and values in his conclusion. He notes that the fence will be perched upslope of the system on the easterly portion of the site, and that it's out of the zone of riparian influence and therefore not impact any stream flow dynamics in the system. He then noted the forested wetlands, and as I indicated previously, they don't have any substantial capacity to pool water because of their slope. He said, as such, their ability to support aquatic or even vernal pool habitat is restricted. He said their main function is to convey overland flow, and that these principal functions will not be impacted by the installation of the deer fence, which will permit flow through the system unimpeded. I was in receipt late this afternoon of both of Mr. Klein's reports. He had a couple outstanding comments. He stated his preference would be to use a 7-foot tall welded wire fence with 12-inch opening on the entire bottom to still allow the fence to be 8 feet above the ground. We met after I received this afternoon. I met with Stephen Block, who is our fence installer. He does a substantial amount of deer fence. His concern is that if there's a consistent opening along the bottom of the fence, that the deer have a tendency to attempt to get underneath them because its width is open in its entirety. What he suggested was that we reduce the openings from every 30 feet to every 10 feet. So then that still allows a very frequent opportunity for the passage of any animals to get underneath the fence. Basically, between every fence post, so to speak, there's an opening so that they would be easily able to traverse underneath it. Mr. Klein had noted provisions to prevent avoidable injury or mortality to deer, birds, and other wildlife should be incorporated into the plans. I spoke briefly with Dr. Danzer as it related to this. Unfortunately, he had to be at Middlebury tonight for a public hearing regarding some distribution centers, so he could not attend tonight. But he did note that as it relates to potential issues of birds within the fencing, that if we had considered alternative fencing, such as they have net fencing, which is not rigid, that has a tendency to capture birds. He feels that the welded wire fabric that we're proposing is significantly less likely to impact birds. He also noted the fact that we have no barbed wire that's proposed, that it's significantly less potential for the birds to be caught within this fence. I also spoke to Steve Block with regards to this issue, as he installs a lot of fence and is responsible for the maintenance of it. He has not seen birds get caught within this particular type of fence, which is why he proposes it. We also have Mr. Davies, I believe. I'm only seeing part of the participants, but Mr. Davies, are you on the line? Can you unmute? I see you, but I don't hear you. You're still muted.
Okay, sorry about that.
Yeah, Bill, could you just speak with respect to your experience with deer fencing and wildlife?
So we take care of about 30 properties that have significant deer fencing around them. Of those properties, we take care of 5 of them, which are representative of the property on Good Hill Road. We are on these properties every two to 3 weeks. I've never seen wildlife caught in them. I'm not saying that that's never happened, but I've never seen wildlife caught in the upper parts of the fencing. I do know that we do occasionally get called to these properties and to get deer out of them, and deer definitely will bury underneath wire. Especially when when you have the topography that you do on the property on Good Hill. So I don't think that a 1 foot separation from the ground will be an effective way to keep the deer off the property, as they're trying to establish all the native plants that are going to go along the driveway. So it's not going to be a feasible option, I don't think, to have a 1 foot gap. I think it'll make render the deer fence almost useless. They'll eventually work their way underneath it. So that's where we're at. We do, if they were to allow 10 foot spaces between with the 12-inch gap, I think that'd be an effective compromise. I've seen all the different changes in the plan, and the wood lot up on the upper part of the hill is in good condition. And so I think, and I'm hoping that you'll support this plan. I think that's basically it.
Thanks, Bill.
Yeah.
I can also speak with respect to, we have a horse farm at Nettleton Hollow in Washington, in which a comparable amount of deer fence was installed 2 years ago with a welded wire fabric fence. That one did not have openings, but they actually have, because they have horses, and in their case, it's 2 purposes: 1, to keep their horses within the property if they escape from the paddocks, and 2, to keep the deer out. They actually created a path around the perimeter of the fence, which we do have no interest in doing here. So they monitor it, and I asked Pierre Gillison, who's the property manager, if he had noted any wildlife getting caught in it over the 1.5 years that he's been managing it. And he said he has not seen any himself. Another important part of this project is that we are not removing trees as part of this. We're going around any trees that are out there, inclusive of saplings. But Dr. Danzer did say it would be prudent for him to review the fencing upon installation to provide confirmation to the commission that, number 1, the fencing is taut and not in a loose manner, and number 2, that all of the 12-inch by 12-inch openings are installed 10 feet on center. That's all I have for right now. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Paul. I just have a couple questions, and then of course, if any of the commission members have questions. But one, I did, Paul, note for Steve in his letter that, because I'm still stuck on the fact of if people are going to be out looking at a property, as Bill Davies just stated, like every 3 weeks, I'm still stuck on the fact of why alternative as far as spraying the bushes would not be considered, because it seems to be the main focus is on the plantings that are going to be eventually put along the driveway.
Yeah, we can have Bill speak with respect to the spraying of not only the plantings that have been approved, but the future orchard that we're proposing up in the meadow and the plantings up above. Bill, are you still on here? I think so.
Yeah.
I'm just curious because of the fact that I feel like this is a property that's probably going to be monitored a lot. There's going to be frequent visitation to it. So that was kind of looking at it as an alternative. I was just wondering why it wouldn't be, a consideration as far as spraying the plantings, the natural plantings for the deer.
Well, there's several methods for control of deer browse. one of them carries some fungicides that the homeowner is absolutely against applications with. And then there's several organic sprays that are not quite as effective, and certainly probably wouldn't reduce with the number of plant material that they're going to be putting in. It would probably not be an effective way to control these the deer. There's a lot of deer on the property, so I think they would still browse. They would still feed on the younger plants. There's a lot of ground cover that's going in. There's a lot of they've got winterberry. They've got a lot of good habitat. They've got some hawthorn. They've got dogwood. They've got all sorts of native plants that are going in. They're just not willing to allow the possibility of deer browse on these new planted, which are going to have a difficult time getting established in such a long driveway.
Okay, so you said that you see numerous evidence of deer. I mean, I'm not an expert, but I did over a 2-hour hike through the property. And I have to say, I only saw one area where there was deer scat, and I didn't see rubbings on any of the younger trees, really no area of bedding down. So I'm also questioning, is this kind of as far as reacting too quickly? Because also I want to know the timeline of when are they going to be planning on putting the plantings along the driveway?
Yeah, I mean, you should have been on site today with the snow so that you could see all of the deer paths throughout the property, because they were on site today doing snow removal, and there's a tremendous amount of deer prints throughout, because everyone on the property who's working on it is aware of this application. And I agree with you, when we went on the site walk, I did not see any deer on that day. I come on the property approximately every Wednesday. I've seen them on multiple occasions, but with the snow on the ground, it was quite easy to see the deer tracks significantly throughout the property.
And so Paul, just the last thing, just to get things straight, and then I'm going to see who in the commission has questions for you. So what is being proposed, and originally what you were sorry about the parrot. What you were originally proposing was the 2x2, and now we're down to the 1x1 foot opening. I'm just curious, is that for the fact, because we were discussing it as far as worried about if you had a bigger opening that you could have wildlife getting caught. So is that the reason for changing the size? And then, so we're looking at having the openings every 10 feet instead of every 30 feet. And then also that this fencing is going to be touching the ground, not elevated how in the original application, correct?
Correct, yeah. So the original application had spacing the original application in December had no critter openings. At the meeting in January, we had indicated we would do 12-inch by 12-inch openings every 100 feet. We then revised that based on the site walk to having 12-inch by 12-inch openings every 30 feet. And based on the receipt of Mr. Klein's letter, we are now willing to have 12-inch by 12-inch openings every 10 feet.
And I know that we discussed that, but just so it's clear for all the commission members, because with the original application, I think it said it wasn't going to be touching the ground, but the fencing will be touching the ground, correct? But not buried in the ground, but just touching the ground, right, Paul?
Yeah, just sitting right on top of the ground. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So
you, Paul.
should we have Michael speak?
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask. Okay. Thanks, Rob. I was going to ask if we could have him speak next. Sorry. Thank you.
Michael Klein, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, this is Michael Klein. I'm a biologist and a soil scientist. My office is in West Hartford. I have reviewed the plans. I walked the site. it was my recommendation to elevate the fence. I believe that the alternative suggested in terms of openings every 10 feet would be adequate. I still believe that it's appropriate to mark the fence. It's not just bird impacts, but other wildlife can be hung up on the fence. There's plenty of documentation, some rather gruesome photographs of wildlife caught on deer fence. There are clips that can be attached to the fence to warn, if you will, of its presence. This type of black fencing disappears very quickly in the woods. So we still believe that recommendation is appropriate, and the alternative of spacing the openings at the bottom of the fence every 10 feet is acceptable in my opinion.
Okay, and can I just ask you, you said these clips, so it's basically just to alert them so that it doesn't disappear. Do you have any recommendations of spacing on those that you've seen?
I can provide that to the commission. I don't have it at the moment. I think that's a fairly minor adjustment along with the change in the spacing that could be a condition of approval. I can also provide to Mr. Szymanski some links to vendors who provide these products.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have questions then?
Yes, Sue, I have a few questions. I wasn't at the last meeting when this was discussed, but I did watch the recording of the meeting. Michael, question for you.
Yes.
Do you feel that this is, let me put it this way. Is this fence really necessary going up that driveway here? I mean, when I take a look at my own property here in Roxbury, we've got the same, we've had landscaping done here with the same plants that they're going to put in here. And really the deer aren't a problem. We've got deer coming through the yard all the time. They tend to go after the non-native species first. And, the native species, we don't see them going after it. Just, some of the other like apple trees that we've had put in and stuff like that. We have an arborist that comes in that uses an organic spray that keeps them away from that. What's your opinion on that, Michael?
Sure. We have seen significant deer browse on wetland plantings that we've done in mitigation areas. A lot depends on the specific conditions in the immediate area. They certainly love certain species more than others. Yews and hosta and apples are ornamental plantings that they go after, but they will certainly browse on winterberry and blueberry and shrub dogwoods. Repellent is an option. It requires much more diligent maintenance. Another option would be to just enclose the plantings with fencing, but with all due respect to the commission, I don't think this has, whether or not it's overkill. My personal opinion on that is really not relevant to this discussion. I agree with Mr. With suggested modifications, I agree with Mr. Danzer that it's not a significant adverse impact on the wildlife. Beyond that is, the issue of whether or not there's a feasible and prudent alternative test associated with this application is not really, that's a legal question that I really can't answer. There are alternatives. They have pluses and minuses.
Okay, thanks, Michael.
But
Well,
also
Paul,
from a
I have a question for you too about the placement of the fence here. In some areas here, it looks like it's going right up to the wetlands. Is that just the scale of the map or?
Yeah, no, John, before I answer that, if I could just briefly go over Mr. Klein's comments.
Sure.
We're certainly okay with respect to those markers and being a condition of approval. That's reasonable request. I contacted my client while he was stating that, and he's certainly open to that. The area that you're referencing is likely this area right here, adjacent to the driveway.
Yeah.
The reason for the proximity of the fence is due to the fact that the plantings that were previously approved are between the fence in that area and the driveway. So the idea is to protect those plants. Considering the fact of, that both Dr. Danzer and Mr. Klein are in agreement that there's not a significant adverse impact to the resource from a statutory perspective, the Connecticut General Statutes, the finding that there's not a significant impact changes the prudent and feasible alternative test, in which it actually does not need to be considered. Your regulations do ask us to consider alternatives nonetheless, and which we have done. And as it relates to spraying, John, this would be a enormous amount of spraying done continually. Our client has 4 golden retrievers. He's met with his vet as it relates to the spraying. He's indicated to me on multiple occasions that they do not feel comfortable with the sprays that would be required to protect these plants. And it required, Mr. Davies can correct me if I'm wrong, anytime there's rain events, they typically need reapplication. As part of the prior approval that we received, there were over 1,000 specimens as just that part of the planting for the driveway. That's not inclusive of the orchards that are going to be proposed and the plantings up by the house. So we don't think it's prudent nor feasible to consider spraying as an alternative. And many of the plants that Mr. Klein noted were what was approved as part of our planting plan.
Well, I personally feel that this is an overreaction. We all have deer here. Before moving to Roxbury, I lived in Brookfield, and there, the deer were a huge problem. You can take a wooden stake, paint it green, and put it in the ground, and they would nibble on that. But my own experience here is that it's not as much of a problem as you're making out to be. But
I respect your opinion.
Paul, I have a question on the fence on the Painter hillside where, let's see, it'd be the southern border.
Right here?
Along there, right along the property line there.
Yep.
Okay, so that particular section of fence crosses a intermittent stream a bunch of times.
You're talking about this area here, Rob?
No. Is that that line? Is that
that's the
blue
upland
line?
review line? This
Okay.
line right here,
Okay,
Rob?
that's not. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's the upland review line.
Okay. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Okay, I just have a question about how long is this fence going to take to install?
I talked to Stephen Block, who's the proposed installer. He said, as long as the weather's cooperating, they can do anywhere from hold on one second. Let me look back at my.
Well, I'll tell you what I'm leading up to.
Yeah.
Are they going to corral wildlife inside this fence, the deer that aren't going to be able to get out?
No, and we have several gates. So That's a good question. So we have multiple gates as part of this application. So he's doing anywhere on the order of 250 to 400 feet of fence on a great day. So basically he starts at one section. We have gates proposed at both driveways that currently exist, and there's other gate locations along there. And so what he said typically happens is the fence gets installed, the gates are not put up initially, and basically he has a team of about a dozen people that basically walk from the most remote corner where there are not openings, and then they walk their way down through the area, approximately 100 to 150 feet away from each other, so that if there are any deer, they're basically pushing them out to the opening.
And if it's in the springtime and there's a fawn, I mean, they hide pretty well in the woods.
Yeah, I mean,
it's just a concern. I'm not that it's a wetland concern. It's just a concern that I had to voice on this.
Yeah, I mean, we will. My client is just as worried about wildlife as everyone at this meeting, and so if we need to have it, we are intending to do this in the near future. So he'd be more than happy to put extra men on it to ensure that, instead of it being every 150 feet when they're walking through, it could be every 50 feet. He would have no issue with something like that.
Okay. Then my other question, I have two other questions, and I'll be done. Just to the north of this property, there's a natural diversity data area. Has anyone looked at that or have any comments?
We're outside of the hit of NDDB, so we did not make a request.
Okay, but is the proximity of this property to that of any concern to anyone? Michael, I guess that would be a question for you.
Without knowing what the hit is for, I can't comment. It's not a specific regulatory requirement for a local permit, but it is potentially an element in an impact assessment. If the commission would like the applicant to submit a request for that information, I believe that's within your ability to make that request.
Rob, I'm not familiar. What, can you explain to me what you're referring to?
Well, it's an area that's been designated. It could include endangered species. Let's see.
Whereabouts is that in relation to the property?
It's to the north of the property on Painter Hill Road, just the north. I don't believe it encompasses any of this property, but it's to the north of this property. I don't know distance wise how far north. Paul, maybe you would know that.
Yeah, I'm trying to pull it up right now.
See where Upper County is?
Yeah.
It's like there's almost like three circles together or two.
This area right here, speaking to.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's significantly north of our property. And I guess in response to that, whether it would be a endangered or threatened species or a non-endangered species, we are allowing openings to have the ability for any small animals to be able to migrate through. And I think, most important is, when we go back to the enabling, I think I shared this at the last meeting, but if I didn't, I apologize. Hold on one second. Let me just pull this over. This is section 22A-41 of the Connecticut General Statutes, which basically discusses findings for consideration of decisions. And I highlighted D at the bottom because it says a municipal and the wetlands agency shall not deny or condition an application for regulated activity in an area outside wetlands or watercourses on the basis of an impact or effect on aquatic plant or animal life, unless such activity will likely impact or affect the physical characteristics of such wetlands or watercourses. So the pertinent case as it related to that was River Sound versus the Town of Old Saybrook Wetlands Commission. In that case, they were proposing a golf course on a property, and I believe it was Michael Clemens had reviewed. And in that case, there was, because of the large extent of activity in close proximity to the wetlands, there was a finding that the wood frogs eating the leaf debris and then defecating the leaf debris impacted the physical characteristic of the wetlands. And as such, they were able to consider the impacts of animal life from a wetlands regulatory perspective. In this case, we're not providing any barriers to allow, to disallow the migration of smaller animals so that they can function in any way that they currently do with respect to the wetland systems themselves. And that was more of a, that was not a sloping wetland that didn't support the same amount of habitat.
Okay, Rob, you have any other questions or?
Well, I'm a little not confused, but I kind of, I mean, Michael, you mentioned that it would be in our jurisdiction to request that information.
I believe so. I don't have a encyclopedic knowledge of your regulations, but most regulations that are based on the models say that such other information as the commission deems necessary to make an informed decision.
I have a couple of questions when Rob is done.
I'm done.
Okay, you're done. I just wanted to know what the change in cubic yards or square footage is from the previous map to this map, if you have that information.
The area enclosed here.
Yes, please.
Yeah, hold on one second. The original enclosure was 46.8 acres. The revised enclosure for the site walk was 30.4. Currently proposed is 29.3.
Okay, and are there going to be any cameras on the fencing?
No.
Okay, and I think it would be important for the property owner, who I know doesn't come to meetings or anything like that, he has a lot of people speaking for him, to know the danger of a fence on this scale for the ungulate population. Biologically speaking, it is the second largest cause of death for deer. And it does fragment their habitat, and they do often get caught underneath. So I think that maybe some kind of camera system might be helpful, or some kind of alert system, so you know if a deer gets caught, because they're often injured and die as a result of this type of fencing.
What was the type of camera system, Sierra? Because we'd most certainly consider it.
I don't know precisely what kind of camera system, but I know that is, that is one of the dangers. And if he does care about the wildlife, and if that is, and another thing this is definitely just for his plants. It's not a privacy fence.
No, it's wide open. It's welded wire fabric.
Okay.
So it has openings in it. So it's
I know. I saw the critter.
No. I mean,
I just meant like protection, like from him, if that was.
it provides no privacy. It's what you can see through it.
No, I think she's referring to like security, like a
Yeah,
security.
that's what I meant. Security, not privacy. Thank you.
Oh, I guess so, because it's a fence.
Well, I just wanted, yeah, I just wanted to make sure that he knows what the repercussions are for the wildlife with a fence like this, whether it's for his, truly for his plants, or if it's, you know, a protection type thing. You know, it's, you know, I think that should just be intimated to him. Because
Yeah,
it does.
I'll make sure. He
It
watched
does.
the last, he watches every Zoom in its entirety, Sierra.
Okay.
Of every one of your meetings for every single agenda item. He also gets the voices on top of it, but he watches each and every Zoom when it's released.
Okay.
Not just his, every single thing. He's very interested
Okay.
in Roxbury and the job that you guys are doing.
Okay, so maybe he could think about cameras or something
I'll most certainly
for
look into it. Sierra.
under the fences, because especially fawns will be prey to those fences. That was my other concern.
Okay.
Yeah, I just had a question. So, oh, Sue, did you have a question? Sorry.
No, Kathy, go ahead. I do have a question for Michael, but go ahead.
Paul, could you just zoom in on the picture on the bottom so we could read that where it says proposed welded wire fence?
Yeah, hold on 1 second.
So the
Can you see that
footnote,
clearly?
yeah, so this says on the notes, the proposed fence installation shall be performed by a hand pneumatic post driver without the use of any heavy machinery to minimize land disturbance. So in the case where, you know, you hit rock, I'm assuming Painter Hill is like where I live and it's pretty rocky, right? So we're going to hit something. And you're driving these 12-foot long steel fence posts 3 feet into the ground, right? So in the case where that's not sufficient, you hit something pretty rock solid, right?
Yeah, let's say we hit ledge. They have a with a weed eater motor attached to it, a core drill. That core drills to install the fence post.
Okay. And so, and that core drill, I'm sorry, I'm not that familiar with a core drill or how big it is.
So it's just again, it's similar. It's like a weed whacker motor with basically a hole saw. So it basically has a hole saw that makes a cylinder into the ledge that's tight to the fence post itself.
Okay, so I'm thinking about dragging all this stuff through all of this area as I go back to the picture, right? So you're saying it's just labor. We're not using any trucks or anything to sort of schlep this required tools and fencing and posts into places. Am I saying that correctly?
Yes, that's correct. So I'm going to pull up the actual post driver tool that they use.
Yeah, that's okay.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I'm just going to show it so you can see it.
Yeah, no, that's
so
fine.
that's it. It's handheld. Yeah.
Okay, and so the fencing, like I'm guessing the stuff is pretty heavy, right? But it's just people labor carrying.
It's about 100-foot rolls, weighs about 180 pounds, and 2 guys carry it. So they have a flatbed truck on the driveway. It has the fence posts and the fencing in rolls, and then they carry over the fence posts and the rolls of fence in off the driveway.
Okay, so can you go back to the picture? I just want to look at the driveway relative to the fence again.
Yeah. Hold on 1 second. It takes a little while to load, so I apologize.
Yeah, that's okay. Okay, so that's pretty steep. We all walk that. Okay, so there's driveway and the other section, it's not exactly.
So here's the driveway here. Here's the driveway running along here. This is all open meadow and drivable. This is all open meadow and drivable right through here. So within approximately 50 to 70 feet is a driveway or a drivable surface.
Okay, thanks, Paul. I had one
You're
other
welcome.
question, which is about the impact on birds. There was a comment that there was, and I apologize if I'm not saying it, I'm just really looking for clarity on the expected or anticipated impact on birds. I think someone made a comment that it was expected to be negligible. I don't recall who made the comment, but perhaps you can elaborate or on that.
Yeah. So that was Bill Davies, who's our arborist. Bill's responsible for the maintenance. He lives down the street, or up the hill, I apologize. So Bill had spoken with respect to that, and I spoke as well for a property that we oversee in Washington. That's a horse farm that's currently under construction. And we also indicated that we're willing to add the markers that Mr. Klein suggested at the interval he requests. My understanding of those markers, he can correct me if I'm wrong, they hang freely and are of a reflective nature. So the motion of them alerts the birds to the fact of the presence of the fence.
Some of this, Michael Klein, some of them are reflective, some of them aren't, but it's just to alert visually the presence of the fence. There, you know, animals and birds that hit the fence may not necessarily be stuck on the fence, so that can result in injury. I would just like to point out, I'm not sure what the solution is, but fawns, and maybe this is a seasonal restriction that I think Mr. Horgan talked about, but the mother deer will, if they sense a danger, they'll move away from the fawn to distract and attract whatever the danger is. The fawns will stay motionless, and they're very very well camouflaged. I almost impaled one once with my auger because it was literally right next to my feet. I will agree that I don't see a lot of deer activity on this property. The idea of driving the deer out is a good one. The fawns may best be dealt with a seasonal restriction. In terms of the gating, it's one suggestion that the literature provides is to have the gating at least in every corner or significant angle point, because the animals will move along the fence if they're trapped. If they hit an angle point, they may just turn and head back in the other direction, so that if you're driving an animal that is trapped inside the fence to a gate, it's convenient to have them located in the corners.
Michael, I have a couple questions for you. So when you're talking about too with the gating, I don't know if this pertains to with the fencing, but I do know sometimes when they are trying to make, let's say, pass-throughs for wildlife, sometimes they will do almost like a corral type thing where they will have angles coming towards the fence to let them know that that's a pass-through area. Is that in your experience, would that pertain just to something with the deer, or even with some of these openings to allow the wildlife to know where to pass, better guide them through?
I don't have any experience with that.
Okay. All right. And another question for you is, since you obviously walked the property with the wetlands, do you, in your opinion, would the installation of this fencing be better served at a dry time of the year or a particular time of the year?
I think that maneuvering what will essentially be from what Mr. Szymanski has told us, about 200 pounds of steel in a big roll with long fence posts added together. Like I said, it's about 200 pounds. I think it's going to be difficult to do that when there's wet conditions. But I don't think that would result in a significant impact to the wetland. I think as long as they're not cutting any roads or pathways, they're not going to result in any erosion, and it's just going to be a matter of how difficult it is, how much time it takes, how badly the installers are going to be cursing out the owner. Not to make light of it, but I'm not sure it's really as long as it's done all with hand tools and without creating any access ways, then I don't think it would have an adverse effect.
Okay. I guess I just worry because I feel like you coming into spring too with that, that's going to be more, problematic with any kind of wildlife that's on the property. Does any commission members have questions?
Yeah. Hey, Paul, when are you looking to do the installation, and how long do you think it'll take?
Right away, approximately, if we say it's during weekdays, we're looking at a period of about 30 days.
Okay.
So if we are able to proceed with this, fawns are typically born in late spring to summer. So summer technically starts June 21st. So we certainly want to have this done by May 15th. So then the fawns aren't being born until after the fence is installed.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to speak about deer fencing a little bit, if you guys don't mind. Our business is located in Westchester County, Fairfield, and Litchfield County. The biggest problems that I've seen with deer fences in areas where the deer have nowhere else to go. And that's where we find when you have a bigger problem when they're channeled in by multiple fences on multiple properties. All the large properties around this particular property are open. The deer generally will form runs along the edges of fencing, and they will definitely not be as impacted as they would be in areas where they're forced to go in certain directions. I think that has to be taken into consideration. I also just want to mention the number of plants that are going are real beneficial for the wildlife. There's a lot of material that's going to be an attractor for birds. It's going to be a big benefit for the wildlife, and it will also help us to reestablish the edges of the woodlands, which the homeowner has done such a great job of preserving. We've got trees all through the upper property, some of which are not in the best condition, that have been left to make sure that we hold the soil and to minimize erosion. He's left a lot of younger trees in certain areas so that the woodlot will recover. All that's good habitat for wildlife. But I think most importantly, as far as the deer fence, we have to consider the size of the properties around it, the number of areas where the deer can actually still travel. They can travel all the way up to my house without hitting a fence. This particular property, we're just trying to reestablish some good native quality shrubs and trees and to diversify the woodlot. So I think that's what's before us. I appreciate all your time.
Thank you. I do want to make a comment to that though, because I think that stating that, one thing that I have not liked is the fact that it keeps referencing back to the fact that we okayed some of the tree work that we okayed to be done and the planting of the natives. And then I feel that there's a little bit that we okayed planting native plants, that's coming back to us to say that, okay, the commission okayed the planting of these native plants, but now, we need to protect our investment on these native plants. And, it would almost make me think personally that I'd say like, okay, I would have said you can do the tree work, but I don't care whether you plant native plants or not, because I don't want to make this fencing be, well, look, you said that we could do this planting, well, we need to protect our investment. And also I look at it that with this fencing, that you're really, you're making a fragmented piece of woods there. It's almost like creating a zoo, because you're going to be you're saying that you're attracting wildlife, but the wildlife isn't really going to be free to go except within that area. So how much wildlife are you going to be bringing in? So I didn't, just personal opinion, I don't know if that's a valid statement.
And I also have another comment on that. So you're saying that all these other properties are open and all these other people have decided to keep their property open, but they could build houses on it. And then since you guys did this, then they can do it. And then the deer really don't have anywhere to move. They need to be able to move between patches. I mean, it is what it is, but I mean, that statement of just saying that other people have open space, and I don't know. When you say, oh, I can do this because other people have their spaces open, I just think the same rules should apply for everyone. Everybody should allow the deer to move freely. I just feel personally that you've moved to Roxbury for a certain reason. There's wildlife here. I just wish people wouldn't encroach on wildlife and try to kick them out of their own habitat, and really think about that. Not everybody else's space, but your own, this homeowners.
Totally agree with you, Sierra.
Yeah, it absolutely impacts the natural movement patterns of wildlife, whether it be deer, whether it be birds. And if the deer can't get in here, they're going to go to, just like water, right? If you push water off your property, it's going to go to the neighbor's property, and then right. So you're absolutely impacting their movements.
I just caution you, and I just think you should read on. There's a ton of biological reports on ungulates movement in relation to deer fences. I just think the owner should just read some of those before he proceeds with this.
Yeah, thank you for your comment. As I think I indicated at the beginning, but I might not have touched on it, as part of the original application, we were enclosing somewhere on the order of 80% of the property. And we have significantly reduced it, so only half of the property is enclosed. Every single water source on the property that's available is outside of the fenced area. We have made openings every 10 feet, so things like skunks, raccoons, possums, whatever it may be, has the opportunity to pass freely through the fence. As it relates to birds, we're proposing a bunch of plants that have berries, and they have the ability to easily come within the fenced area and utilize that area in its entirety. So I'm respectful of your comments, but I'm also respectful of the statutes as it relates to what we're proposing. And I do appreciate your comments. As I indicated, the owner does listen to all of your meetings and takes it into consideration. I mean, when you're at the last meeting, the concern about the wetlands areas being enclosed, he immediately told me to remove that. And then there was some further commentary made with respect to the overall area that was enclosed. And then he told me to reduce that as well. So he is listening, and he will continue to listen. And I do appreciate everyone's commentary.
Thank you, Paul. So where do we, so Rob, John, Kathy, Sierra, where do you guys, I believe that this is applications from December, so we have to make a decision here of what we're gonna do. Rob?
Is it from December or is it from January?
No, I believe it's from December, correct? Julie? Can you confirm that for me?
I'm actually, Paul, can you unshare, please?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I'm just trying to pull up my own. I'm trying to pull up the application.
Sue, is there something else, some other information you feel that we need at this point?
I,
Go ahead, Rob.
I'm still, no one else has commented on the commission about that critical habitat area. And if
Well,
that's something,
I was gonna ask you about that, Rob. I mean, because I was trying to look at timeline, what we have. And if we have a timeline, then if the commission, if anybody on the commission thought that we should be looking into that, then if our timeline, depending on what that is, whether we would ask Paul, I don't know if we can, if to move this to the next meeting, but I kind of need to know the timeline.
It was accepted at the December 20th meeting. I can share the minutes if you'd like.
Actually, yes, it was accepted. I'm looking at it right now. It was, yes, December 22nd.
Thank you.
Yeah, you can see it right there.
So does that allow us any time to get any further information that Rob had mentioned?
No, because I think we have the 65 days and we're on that with this meeting. So I'm sorry, guys, this is all new to me.
well, as I recall, well, first of all, I'd just like to say that I brought that up. I don't know if anyone else thinks it's important to look into that. Anyone else on the commission? I think if it's of importance, I think we could ask for an extension.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah.
So just a couple things as it relates to this request. Number one, the commission had brought up a concern with respect to the potential for fawns getting captured within the area that would be enclosed. By waiting another month, that then pushes the construction timeline associated with the fence into the time period at which fawns actually are born. Number two, let's make the assumption there's some sort of threatened or endangered species north of the site and it's some sort of small animal. I still don't understand from a legal perspective how that would be any different than a non-endangered or a threatened species. The task that we have as it relates to the statutory law of the Wetlands Commission is that if there is a concern about a particular piece of wildlife or an animal, our fence has to prevent it in a way that it would physically impact the physical characteristic of the wetlands. We've heard from our expert, Dr. Danzer. You've heard testimony from your expert that with the openings every 10 feet, whatever the animals may be, there would not be an adverse impact to the resource. So the testimony of both your third-party expert and our expert is consistent in this case.
I think we do have to make a decision, but I just have a couple more questions about the fence. Is it flat on the top? Like there's no finials?
Oh no, it's rounded.
Itself.
Let me pull that up. Hold on.
That would make it safest for deer if we
hold
want
on.
to.
Yeah,
whatever.
No, I think that should be a condition of approval. Let me find the thing. Julie, is it okay if I share my screen?
Yep, go ahead and share.
Okay, thank you. Well, 1 second. I just got to find it because Steve had sent it to me. So it's a domed cap.
Okay, so that goes on top of, like, instead of a finial,
There's
Is that
zero
right?
finial.
There's
You
zero
can
fennel.
you can stipulate that it has to be a domed cap.
Okay. And then, so instead of like being a flat top, like it has like rails going perpendicular, and those would be on top. Is that what that is for?
This goes on top of the fence post itself. It's a
Fence,
domed
okay, that's
cap.
what I figured.
Yeah. Yep.
And then, are there any rails on the bottom, like
No.
going across?
No.
Okay. Yeah, I think we should make that a condition, depending on where we go with this. Okay. I just wanted to know that.
Anybody else have any input? Sierra, I have a question for you though, the concern on the top of the, is that for what you're thinking for protection on top of the?
Yeah, because a lot of times if they jump a fence, they could get caught up there. If they have flat or domed, they could at least be safe and not get hurt. And then also is the same for the bottom. A lot of times there's like a bottom rail. I think we have to make a decision based on the stipulations that we have, the inland and wetland ones. So in order to do so, I think we should at least make it as safe as possible, depending on if that's how we vote. But yeah, that's the safest.
Okay, that's a good point.
Otherwise, they get hurt easily in other fencing. Mostly it's steel fencing, fencing with finials, and the wrought iron fencing, and obviously barbed wire.
Rob, Kathy, John, do you have any further comments? Or
No, I think we have all the information we need at this point, in my opinion.
okay. Do you think that were you guys entertaining the fact that we should ask for to hold off to as far as this natural diversity database, or do you think that we should proceed and go ahead and make a motion and vote on this tonight?
My opinion, Sue, is that it appears that area that's been identified as north of here. So I don't know if that's gonna do anything for us.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of my opinion on it. So I think that my only questioning would be, I guess we can make it as a stipulation, because we did bring up some points with suggesting for pickleball with possible cameras or some way to monitor if there's any kind of wildlife that are being stuck in the fencing. So cameras were proposed. I know Paul said that he could bring that back to the owner to discuss that. And then when we were talking about some sort of marking for wildlife on the fencing, I guess we can make that as a condition that it's reviewed with a commission member before what they've come up with before they proceed with the installation of the fence. So that's my only question out to you guys.
Michael, how often should those markers be put on the fence?
I don't know the answer to that. They're fairly regularly spaced, but again, I think that could be a condition of approval that they be that the plan be modified to reflect the appropriate spacing, and then we can research that and then, you know, make that stipulation. I'd rather not try and shoot on the fly on that, or you can wait till next month if you have that ability.
Michael, is that something that you can research, and then we'll make that as a stipulation according to your recommendation?
Yes.
Okay, I'm good with that.
What about also, Michael, you had brought up with the gates at angle points? So would you be able to put that into the recommendation when you're looking up for the spacing for the markings?
I'm sorry, what was the?
I believe that you had said as far as it's recommended that if you have the gates, that's better at an angle point.
Oh, yes. Yeah. I think that that could certainly be a stipulation that in addition to any other fence, any other gates, that they be provided at the interior corners.
Okay.
There's a lot of angles here.
Yeah. If it's an exterior angle, it doesn't provide any benefit. If you understand what I'm trying to say. Okay. If it's an interior angle, then it would.
We also might want to add specific supports, like how many feet apart, as long along with the like how far apart the posts are themselves.
I believe that's specified in the plan.
That's in there. Yeah.
Is that all in there? Okay.
Yeah.
Is it like 20 and 15 or 14 or something like that?
The openings are every 10 feet proposed now, which would
Oh,
be a
okay.
condition.
Oh, that's what was just changed. I'm sorry. Can't keep up.
Okay, so I'm going to make a motion here to approve this regulated activity for the installation of deer fencing at sorry guys. Hold on a minute here, I apologize. Why can't I find the 84 Good Hill Road? Are we saying that proposed deer fencing? Are we all right, I will start over again. Apologize for that. So I'm making a motion for a regulated activity for the installation of deer fencing, Stone Ledge Sam at 20 Painter Hill Road and 84 Good Hill Road in Roxbury, that we will have 12 by 12 openings every 10 feet. Also that there will be domed fence post installed with the recommendation of having gating at interior corners, that as stated that the gates will be open to allow wildlife to pass through the installation of this, and that upon recommendation of Michael Klein, the markings on the fence for the wildlife, and also for the installations of cameras, or it will be stated how this fence will be monitored for any wildlife. do I have any discussion on this?
Yeah, I have a question for Michael. So Michael, as far as fawns being born, what would you say that a date for that would be typical?
Well,
Yeah,
all,
I know.
all the typical stuff is out the window because the weather
Yeah.
is just
Yeah,
so
yeah.
completely bizarre. I think uh again, I think you could go with you could make it a condition on appropriate seasonal restriction to minimize impacts um, on newly born deer, and I'll try and give you as best information as I can on that.
I know Paul wants to get this done ASAP. I just don't want it to drag on into that period. And I think if this is approved tonight, he's got plenty of time, but that's all.
Yeah, no, I believe that there should be a date restriction, because despite the best intentions, things happen, plans change, and so forth. So the fence might not be available. We've got supply chain problems, et cetera, et cetera. So let me right now, I think if it's completed before May 15th, we'll be fine. But if you'd like, I can research that a little further, and we can fine tune that as a condition of approval, along with the spacing and location of the markers.
Okay, so I think that we could add that in as a condition that we would expect the work to be completed by May 15th unless we hear differently. And if it can't be completed by May 15th, then this is something that has to be assessed by the board, the commission.
And this will be on Michael's recommendation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Any other discussion? Do I have
A second?
on this? Yes.
Second?
Okay. And, okay, so,
Hey, Sue, I
Yeah,
just want to add for the record, I still believe that the owner of the property has been ill-advised with this fence here. But because we're here for wetlands reasons and we're restricted by what we have to make a judgment on, I'll abide by that.
okay, now sorry, I hear you on that, John. This has been a very difficult application for me and for my first application to have to monitor, because I have very strong personal feelings on this. I feel that you come out into this beautiful town that we live in for the wildlife and the woods that we're blessed with, and I hate to see fencing, and somebody referenced really turning this into Westchester County. And I feel though that that we need to, as a town, which we can't handle here on this application, but as a town, I think we need to start looking at what's important. But what was brought to us is what's brought to us, and we have to be looking at the as far as the wetlands and how this impacts the wetlands, and that's where I stand on this.
Sue, I'd like to just say one thing too. I do believe that something will change in town after this application, because I just think this application is really ignorant relative to the environment. But I understand our task at hand, and we don't have a leg to stand on with this application in trying to deny it.
So I feel that I agree with you. I feel that we're trying to hopefully we didn't miss anything, because that's the thing that I find sometimes that we have the best intentions, and sometimes things either sometimes unfortunately will get used in a way I want to say against us, but I hope that we've taken into what factors we can tonight. So I'm not pushing everyone and telling you that we need to vote tonight, but I made the motion and I feel that, like I've already said, that we need to be, this has been very difficult for me. I'm not happy about it. And especially after spending a couple of times walking the property and seeing the beautiful woods. But I think that we need to address the application as is pertaining to I'm so sorry, guys. I'm really sorry. I hope you can hear me, but we need to vote on this and address as far as our the wetlands go. So I'm going to bring this to a vote unless somebody has any further discussion. Okay, so all in favor of this?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, so carried.
Thank you for your time, everyone. I greatly appreciate your comments, questions, concerns, and thoughts.
Okay. All right, Paul.
Have a great evening.
Good night, Paul.
Michael, you will be in touch with us, I'm assuming.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to be out of town for almost 2 weeks. I will try and see if I can address this tomorrow before I leave.
Thanks, Michael.
Sure
All
thing.
right,
Take care.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael.
Okay, so any further discussion tonight? And you guys, thank you for bearing with me. I have to say, sorry for my parrot. Don't have the best internet, and thanks for fellow commissioners for you guys being out there.
Your parrot was fine, Sue. I wasn't
did.
making.
It bothered
I
you.
was
but
hoping that
yes.
that the parrot might, squeal something that we can get some dirt on you. But
All right, so make a motion to adjourn.
so moved.
Wait, yeah, that's fine. Okay.
Are we
I'm
good?
done.
Are we good? You guys can yell at me if I'm doing
I
something
have one
wrong.
more question. Can I just ask you one more question? So from a biological standpoint, if we find out that the birthing patterns of fawns has changed, can we amend the date after the meeting?
It will be.
Or is
according
it
to-
all done?
No. According to Michael is going to research that and make a recommendation. We'll go by that.
Yeah, it's part
We
of
have to go by his recommendation? Okay.
Yeah, it's part of the condition of the application, so.
It's
as long
done.
as they said it all there,
I
yeah.
know it's
done.
done. It's just
True.
painful.
All right. you
Okay.
get A second for closing the meeting?
Okay, done. I'm done.
Second, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Kathy. All right, guys, I appreciate your time and
Yep.
your.
Thanks, Sue.
Great
Thanks,
job.
Sue.
You're
Sue.
great.
Great job.
You
Thank
did a
you.
great job, Sue. Thank you.
Yep.
You did.
Right.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thanks, everyone. We got to change this.